So, hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship podcast, Innovation Ecosystems Unpacked. What do startups and scale-ups really need? As you know, in this podcast we try to unpack what is the real meaning of an innovation ecosystem and what do startups and scale-ups really need in order to maximize their growth. And today we're going to address this with two great guests that are here today with me. We know that startups and scale-ups are an important engine of job creation in the Netherlands as well as abroad, but also an important driver of innovation with a strong societal impact. Today we're going to address a very hot topic, very hot sector at the moment, the future of mobility. What we notice nowadays that people and goods have never moved so much intensively and rapidly as they're doing it right now. We had some maybe some hiccups with COVID. But the volumes are insanely high. Mobility is also in general a synonym for economic wealth, so of the economic development. It's often used as an indicator as well. But at the same time, it grew so much that it has become also unsustainable in the way that it is right now. So the question for today is also, what can startup and scale-ups do about this? How can they have an impact with their innovative ideas into solving these issues? And at the same time, what can we do as ecosystem developers, of what can the policymaker actually do to empower those scale-ups so that they can grow and actually maximize their impact. So this is the topic of today, and we're going to discuss it with two great guests, as I said. So on my right we have Tom Selten. He's head of business development and policy at Lightyear. Probably one of the most innovative scale-ups we have in the Netherlands, or maybe in the world. We could also say that. You guys were also part of our top 250 scale-ups, even top 5 young scale-ups and top 5 impactful scale-ups of the Netherlands. So very impressive growth with a very interesting product. So very interesting to hear a little bit more about that. Also one scale-up I'm quite passionate about on a personal level. So welcome, Tom.
Thanks.
And on my left I have Professor Tom Mom. You're Professor of Strategic Entrepreneurship, Growth also as well, and Implementation at Erasmus University, RSM, Rotterdam School of Management, and also Senior Research Fellow at the Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship. On a side note, our cameraman today is also called Tom, so it's going to be a bit funny with all this Tom in the room, but we'll try to keep it easy. Yeah. So welcome both of you.
Thank you.
Tom Selten, actually from Lightyear. Maybe we can start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about what Lightyear is? I think everyone knows what you guys are doing, but if you can try to concentrate it in a few words, what you guys are doing and what's the potential of it?
Yeah, so basically we want to make electric cars and the clean cars scalable, so make them accessible for everyone. That's also our mission, clean mobility for everyone, everywhere. You see, if you look at our car, it's covered in solar cells, so which means that they actually generate electricity, which the car uses to drive on. But it's not solely about the solar cells. You could also build a Lightyear without solar cells. And what you would then have is an extremely efficient car, which enables actually to drive as much as kilometers on a really small battery. So we started from scratch 10 years ago, developing solar cars in the World Solar Challenge. Probably you know them from these challenges, which the Netherlands already is a world champion in, I think, for over 20 years now. So we are actually quite good at it at the Netherlands. And world champion literally means champion of the world. So there is no one better than you, which is a good starting point if you want to start a company, I would say. And that's what we decided in 2016 to start a company based on all the developments made in this university. So not only the TU Eindhoven, where I'm from, but also the University of Delft and the University of Twente and the University of Groningen is also now building solar cars. So we have a great history already in the Netherlands on this technology, and we want to make it scalable, to make actually the technology accessible for very, very large group, and to people who don't have access, for example, to electricity or have limited access. If you look at the newspapers nowadays, it's full of news about our congested electricity grid, meaning that you cannot actually install solar panels on your roof anymore because the grid is full. I imagine what will happen if you get more and more cars, you need more and more charges. It will become a bottleneck, and I think one of the solutions we propose is make cars more efficient and make them self-generating, so make them consume their own electricity. On the policy side, there are no policies for this. It doesn't really exist yet in legislation. So for us, it's an uphill battle. But if it wasn't an uphill battle, probably we wouldn't have done it, because it's a great journey in that sense. And we are growing like hell, actually. So we started with 5 founders. We're now at 330, and our growth ambition for end of 2022 is to be at 800, 900 people, not only in the Netherlands but also in Europe, because we're going to produce the car starting from this year in Finland, where the car will be assembled and will be shipped back to Western Europe, where we have our first customers. So our first customer delivery should be this year as well. You can keep a clear eye on us, I think.
Yeah, we shall do so.
Months,
and if you guys realize that, I think you will make it to the top 250 Scaleups of 2022 as well.
If this
is the reason. Yeah, are you, by the way, officially a spinoff of TU Eindhoven, or what's your relationship with them?
I think on this definition of spinoff, there is a lot of debate as well on what's a spinoff and what's not a spinoff.
That's why I'm asking as well.
As student team, we were not part of the university. We had a sole entity, a foundation, our own foundation, and the university was a sponsor of this foundation. Also, we had VDL as a sponsor. We had Philips, we had NXP, all these companies sponsoring the foundation. So it's not really a spin-off. Of course, we got huge help from professors at the university, but it really was our idea and our IP. So we hadn't this issue which a lot of students face when they have IP of the university. Luckily, we didn't have this issue. We actually thought about that in the beginning very well. So I think for us, actually, the university it was a great place to start our company, because it really helped us to get access to all the labs and all the facilities and all the knowledge of the professors. But it's much more about, I think, network, and that's what we in the Brainport did quite well. And what I see also here happening in a lot of other universities is that it's not only university, it's all the companies around it who actually support these student teams. And I think that's amazing to see what can happen out of these universities. I think we are just scratching the surface of what actually is possible, what we could do in the Netherlands if we continue to organize this well. So I'm really supportive of all the ecosystem development you guys are doing as well. Actually, the Erasmus Center of Entrepreneurship was an example for the TU Eindhoven to set up also a sort of similar entrepreneurial community. So keep up the good work.
Yes, and also do it together. That's also what we like to do together with Eindhoven, and to help each other in this. And I'm hearing a lot of interesting things. I'm looking at Tom on my left as well, because you're talking about people, so talent, but you're also talking about network. You're talking about partners. You're talking about clients. These are all things that actually fall within what we define by an innovation ecosystem for startup and scale-ups.
Yep.
And Tom, you were also leading the research that we recently did at Erasmus Center for Entrepreneurship, initiated by Deloitte, around the future of mobility. Yep. How do you relate to what Tom has been saying so far, and why is an innovation ecosystem actually so important for scale-up to grow, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think if you really start to grow in that kind of numbers, from 5 to 350 to 800, then actually the whole DNA of the organization starts to change. It becomes really the challenge to, on one hand, keep pushing the growth in an entrepreneurial way, and at the same time you need to manage it. You need a bit more structure, order, and that kind of can give some tensions. And then an ecosystem around you, which may provide, for instance, knowledge, talent, partners, can help in a way to manage that balance between, on one hand, staying entrepreneurial, and on the other hand, also, to become smarter in organizing things. So in a nutshell, basically.
Yeah, I get it. And how do you guys actually relate to that? So sometimes I wonder, is innovation ecosystem just a conception that from the academia or policy making will look at it, or is it something that you actively look for as a company when you're growing? Is that a notion that is important in your strategy? Are you having a strategy to go out there and finding these people in the ecosystem, or does it matter at all?
It matters a lot. I think it's also been perceived by investors as important. As we have in our investment decks, for example, we use as Lightyear. We also always name the Netherlands as our sort of one of the high-tech regions in the world, but also the Brainport specifically in the Netherlands as one of the regions where ASML, for example, is, and where Philips and NXP is located. So it helps us to profile ourselves. That's more from a marketing aspect, I would say. But an innovation ecosystem, from my perspective, it's all about people and having a similar mindset on achieving a similar sort of agreed upon goal, right? Because we want to, as Lightyear, we have a huge growth ambition. We don't make any money yet, but we have a huge growth ambition and we want to get there. And you need to have this mindset that's okay to not to grow like this, right? And I think that's, you could name it entrepreneurial, but some people call it just stupid because they say, yeah, make money first and then roll out your growth plans, where we say, no, we need to invest up front because we are building something totally new, radically new innovation, and we need time and we need people and we need talent to grow this. But once everybody believes that it's possible and really has the same mindset, then you really can create a sort of flywheel of people who actually are helping each other out. And it's much more than capital only. It really is about linking in the right partner at the right time. For example, we are now also expanding our company not only in the Brainport region but also to other places in the Netherlands. So also looking to how can we find the right the hubs where we can actually grow our company. So that might be Rotterdam, but it could also be Utrecht or Amsterdam, and to really see, hey, are there also similar sort of people who actually can help Lightyear there reside and get access to the right talent and get access to the right people. And then you really want to connect these ecosystems. But it's all about people. It's really all about people with a similar mindset. And that's where we specifically look for if we are expanding or if we are working together with partners, is that they say, hey, you have a uphill battle, it's maybe 10% chance that we'll make it, but we'll believe in this 10% and we'll make it happen, right? You need this mentality, and otherwise it's not possible. And there's a really fine balance between those two things. Because you look for people who might be a bit risk loving, I would say. And it's very easy to say what could go wrong. There are 99 reasons why it wouldn't happen, what Lightyear is achieving, but there's one really good reason why it will happen. And as long as you have enough people believing in that one reason, we will succeed. And that's what for me defines an innovation ecosystem, is that people believe that these innovations are possible and they really want to make it happen. And they know, of course, that it couldn't happen, that it's possible that it wouldn't happen, but you really need those believers, I would say.
How do we make sure that everybody is on the same page within such an ecosystem?
Impossible.
Open question, huh?
I think it's impossible.
Impossible?
Impossible, yeah, really, because we've got so many different perspectives. But once you get sort of it's really about getting momentum, right? So you start small and then getting more and more people in and really conveying that you sort of, as in the Brainport region, we like to call, we want another ASML, right? The next, who is going to be the next ASML? There's really a thing, right? We want to be, Lightyear is potentially an ASML, but there are also companies like Eleo who build battery systems who can also rapidly scale, and they're also sort of an ASML. And then once we understand, like, okay, we need like 3 or 5 of these companies maybe, and then maybe one will succeed, then it can happen. But you really need this sort of common denominator mindset, not only and that's really important, not only at the entrepreneurs itself, but also at the municipality, also at the province, also at the government, also at the university. So everybody needs to believe that they really want hyperscaling companies. And if that's sort of common sense, then we can make it. But if there's one chain not working well, then you immediately will recognize it, and that's what we sometimes face as Lightyear as well.
I can imagine indeed that common sense and that common understanding is very important, because there's a lot in the promise of the company, and it is quite capital intensive. Now, Tom, I'm curious, what we learned also based upon the research is that it is also important to sometimes show successes or little breakthroughs to keep investors happy, but also your own employees to keep them motivated,
Yeah.
because it's a huge learning journey, right?
Okay.
And maybe what you said, 9 things maybe don't work out, but yeah, but could you confirm that indeed
Definitely.
showing successes is important, and how do you do that then?
Yeah, I fully agree. I think
right.
one sort of we want to break down a strategy as Lightyear in several sort of waves, as we call it. So we don't want to go from 0 to 100,000 cars immediately. So therefore we say, okay, first build an exclusive vehicle, which is the Lightyear 1.
Yeah.
In limited series. This is something we can achieve in 5 years. Now we are actually 5 years now, and we are there almost. So we are going to hand out the first car this year. But before, we already started saying, okay, the technology Lightyear is developing, like the solar roofs, could also be implemented on other vehicles. So we also started developing our own production line, producing the solar panels, which is much less of a return for investors, because it's a tier 1 position, but it's also much less risk. And this is we can already celebrate, because we already have a production line now almost finished, and we can already show that we are capable as a company of producing a high volume product. Hopefully soon we also announce that we have a partnership with an OEM to which we can supply these solar panels. So indeed you need to break down the big dream into really small steps. And maybe we need even smaller steps. But yeah, there is a balance between being ambitious or being too quickly to the market, and because our innovation stands by the fact that if it's not efficient enough, the Lightyear, it will be perceived, and I think rightly so, as just a normal car. If you look at one of our competitors in Germany, they're called Sono Motors. They're also building a solar car, but they use traditional motors. They do traditional body sheets. They are quite still a traditional electric vehicle, and that's what you see in their solar range is not that huge, and their efficiency is not really as efficient as a Lightyear. It's actually even less efficient than a Tesla. So you could argue whether that's a real radical innovation. And the problem is, because we are radical in a hardware field, and that's also quite important, because in software it's really easy to ship early. Going in software, if we ship early a car and we did not test our inverters in our motors and they explode while driving and our customer dies, then our company is done. This wouldn't happen if you launch an app where, if you, for example, let's take an example of takeaway. If you did not get your groceries delivered, of course it's not nice, but it's not the end of the world, right? It will harm maybe takeaway a bit, but it's not that they.
You have one shot. That's what you mean.
Literally, yeah. So we need to be careful there, and I think one strategy is to be technology supplier. That could help to sort of fix the baseline of the company, and then on that build further. But you don't need to. You never need to lose your ambition, and I think the downside of Lightyear is that indeed there is a huge risk involved. The upside is that there is also a huge upside.
Yeah. But then you need really the people, especially from the capital side, one of the pillars of the ecosystem that are there for you in the long term.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear from Tom as well. Like, how do you look at the capital market in the Netherlands, and then also to companies like Lightyear, and maybe also Hyperloop could be a good example, because they also have quite a hefty capital need before they can ship. How is the current state in the Netherlands, and how do you think we could or should we improve? But it was an open question. Like, should we improve on it, or what's your idea on that?
What we often see is, if you are really venturing into a new concept that still needs some proof, then with respect to the financial world, it's also part of the job to kind of educate them. Because there are maybe no financial analysts specialized yet in this kind of sector. So that is something what we see as an important role also of the founder and the leadership team, to really explain and tell the story, the promise, but also what I just mentioned, to show small successes, to kind of feed them bit by bit, because there's always this tendency of short-termism, whatever promise and story that investors tell. So there we see indeed an important role to engage with them, and maybe, but I'm curious how you look at that. Sometimes, if possible, better under promise, and then show better results than promise, rather than having to come back on. But there is always this temptation to overpromise in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So that's a little bit.
It's a
difficult.
trade-off.
Yeah, indeed. But I can very much imagine if you really scale and grow, you need to look for capital outside of the Netherlands. But also venture capitalists that have deep pockets and really this more long-term perspective. That kind of, indeed.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting question, because if you look at overpromising, for example, we when we started the company in 2016, we thought that in 3 years it would be possible to build a car in 3 years. So we said 2019 we'll ship the first Lightyear.
Yeah.
We are now 2022, and I think probably we'll almost 99% sure we ship this year, because we have the partners in place, we have the product, the technology is validated. We are actually building the production line already, so it looks very promising at this stage. Of course, you never know if a next COVID wave happens, etc. But that's maybe we overpromised a bit on the delivery date.
Oh yeah.
But I think on the specifications, we are still quite conservative. So constantly we are amazed by how well the car is driving, and yeah.
Did you have consequences for that? Like, did anybody get angry or disappointed because you
Actually,
didn't deliver
really.
in time, or in time, like according to the first predictions?
Yeah. What key is, I think, our investor base, we really try to engage them. So we already started 3 years ago as a company to do quarterly updates, which is not really regular for companies who are not listed, to already do quarterly updates written. So we publish every quarter. We could publish a quarterly annual or a quarterly report. We also do quarterly calls with all the investors to keep them on board. And they really see the complexity of building a technology company like Lightyear. It's insanely complex. Like, it also costs ASML 10 years before they could ship the first product. So it's if you build complex products, it takes time to get there. But once you get there and you reach the result, then you actually have a large, quite a head start compared to the competition. If you look at what, for example, Mercedes has released a solar car 2 weeks ago called the EQXX. It's a smaller car than Lightyear. It's a bit more aerodynamic, but it's much smaller. And Lightyear is a huge car compared to what a Mercedes is doing, and we are almost on parallel in terms of aerodynamics. That means if we would design a car like the Mercedes ones, we would probably beat them already on aerodynamics. And then we have now also better solar panels in terms of efficiency. We are more efficient in our powertrain, so we already are in front of Mercedes, which gives us quite a confidence feeling that we are on the right track, and that we already are in front of one of the biggest OEMs worldwide, which is insane. If you look at our research facility, I think it's 5% of what Daimler has in their Sindelfingen factory in Germany. But if you look at then the specifications, I think we are doing quite a good job. So indeed, fully agree with you should not overpromise, but on delivery and on shipping, it could be good to overpromise a bit, because also that gives yourself the urge of getting out there, because one of the biggest
stretch goals.
Stretch goals. Because, and also, and that's really typical for engineers, is that we always see new things to improve product, and you only want to ship when it's 100%, when the maths are right. And when it's not 100% right, we can do another month of testing, and then we'll get there. Or we'll change this and this and this, and then we'll get there. Sometimes you need to say, okay, no, this is going to be the date, and this is going to be the vehicle we are going to ship. And okay, then maybe we have 10% less range, but our customers are happy with 500 kilometers of range, so let's go, right? So maybe we could be even more like, just go out there, and of course everything has to be safe, but you should, sometimes we are maybe too focused on getting it 100% right.
This brings me, let's say, to one of the other building blocks of an ecosystem, that is the customers, or the market, if you want to. How do you do that, Tom? Let's say engaging with customers in this stage, because normally, what we see is you kind of try to prototype or whatever, and then get customer feedback, and then based upon that make decisions. How do you do that?
Yeah, we already have some customers now who are on board at our company for almost 4 years now. So the first Lightyear buyer, we know him quite well, and he is already for 4 years walking our journey. Feels almost like one of the employees.
Family.
Really, like he gave a lot of feedback. We visited his house. We know what he wants. We know his family. We don't have that much customers at the moment, so we have sold almost 150 cars now, Lightyear ones. Yeah. We're not really actively pushing the sale at the moment because we see that we are going to produce a first batch of 250 vehicles the next 2 years. So we are not really in the need of selling the cars. Yeah. And I have full confidence that if we are getting out there and the vehicles driving around, then probably we'll get much more demand. We did sort of an initial survey a couple of weeks ago in the Netherlands to see how many people know about Lightyear. What do you think? Know that Lightyear exists?
Yeah, know that Lightyear exists,
1/3.
30% I wanted to say indeed.
Yeah, we also thought like 30, maybe 20% in the Netherlands. 0.1%.
0.1%.
Really?
We are in a huge bubble.
That's amazing. But one of the challenges, if you talk about the market part of the ecosystem, if you talk about the future of mobility, is also the task that we or you have as innovative companies to kind of educate the market, to kind of set the standard also in the mind of the customers. Is that something you are aware of or working on?
Becoming aware of it, because 1 in 100, like in the Netherlands, knows Lightyear by remembering, and if we show the car, then more people will recognize it, but they won't couple the name Lightyear to the car, and they actually only 0.1% knows a bit about the story, right? Knows a bit about it's a solar car and it has it's more efficient, etc. So that's not that much. Tesla is around 60%.
Yeah, because what you read sometimes also in the literature for this sector is that you have like this gap between also the intention and the actions of people, that everybody wants to be more sustainable and have a future of mobility that it's more apt to the challenges that our world has right now. But then at the very moment of taking the action and maybe purchasing the product, then they don't do it. Maybe they're not ready for it. Maybe they didn't hear about it. You think that of course everybody heard of you, but it's 0.1% instead of 30%. I'm actually a bit surprised about that.
Me too.
How did you make sure that one day we can all buy a Lightyear, or that people can do it, or what's your plan with that, or it's really not your sales strategy, your go-to-market
we started
strategy?
to communicate mid last year that we are also focusing on our second model, which is a car which starting price at 30k. Which is a mass market model. It will be the same technology as a Lightyear 1, but then in a mass market model. That would be started to communicate a bit, but not really actively. Hopefully soon we are going to show how it will look like, the car. That's an announcement we plan in a couple of months' time. So I think a lot of people will see Lightyear, looking at Lightyear now as a company building a really expensive car, and like maybe Karma Fisker, Spyker, like that kind of cars. But our mission is really to go into the mass market, and I think that might help to raise more awareness. But I think the biggest raise of awareness will be if this car is actually driving around, right? And that people can actually drive in it, that journalists can drive it, that you will get the first experiences of how it is actually to drive in a solar car. Then word will spread, I think. And if you will see, hopefully also our technology on other cars, that you see, hey, there's a car, a Hyundai driving with a Lightyear roof. That might make it more popular, I think, also, and for a mass market. But I'm quite amazed indeed that still we think that we are quite famous.
And does it matter what competition is doing? Like, is it better, for instance, now Mercedes, for instance, you were talking about the other German competitor. Do you feel like you have to haste in a way, like you have to go out at the same time, or is it just better if they go out with the product, people get used to it with a solar car, and then you can come with a better product? Or I don't know, does it matter? I guess so. But,
from my perspective, that's my personal opinion, is that it's really, really good that Daimler is doing this. That actually there are more car manufacturers seeing the potential of efficiency and potential of solar on cars. That's why I founded 2 years ago the Association of Solar Mobility. Together with some other companies, we started this association. It's a European association in which we join forces to advocate for solar cars, and that's, I think, really the next big thing for us. Is we need to raise more awareness that this is a potential solution for people who want to drive electric without putting a massive strain on the grid, or without putting a massive strain on the charging capacity needed. So, and that's a solution which is not being acknowledged that much yet by politicians, but also by our complete society. Actually, there are not a lot of people aware actually of the fact that Lightyear is not about the solar panels, but it's really about solving the charging issue. It's really about making sure that if you do not own a private parking spot, that you don't need to charge every week. A Lightyear, you only need to charge every month, and maybe even less if you live in regions where there's more sun. In the Netherlands, we reduce our charging need by almost 5 times compared to other EVs. Of course, it depends on how many kilometers you drive, but if you drive, I would say, 30 kilometers a day just commuting, then with a Lightyear you almost never need to charge anymore, because the solar part takes your daily coverage, and that's insane. But not many people link the fact that it's a solar car to the fact that it's really useful in daily life, and that's the fact. And the reason, therefore, I think, is that only 3% of the car fleet is electric currently. And we say, there is this huge revolution. Of course, there's a huge revolution coming, but there are not that many people driving electric at the moment. It's only 3%. It's crazy. 97% is still gasoline. It's insane. And we think, and of course I'm in this huge bubble, so I think there's electric everywhere. But if you just look at the facts, we are still selling more than 50% gasoline vehicles at this moment. Meaning that in the Netherlands, there will be, in 10 years' time, all these cars will still be around. So we are in this revolution, but we are not in the midst of it. We are in the fucking beginning of it. And we think that we are in the midst of electric revolution, etc. It's not true. It's really early days. And I think Lightyear is solving a solution which we are going to face in 5 years' time, when more people will have electric cars. And I'm sometimes irritated. I drive electric, and I'm very irritated when I see a hybrid car charging at the charging station, which occupies it for me because I cannot charge it at that station. Well, I need it, and this hybrid car is like, I only need it for 20 kilometers a day. So to everybody who's listening and charges their hybrid car, please stop. don't do it anymore. I think you touched upon very, very important points. I think it leads us a bit to another one of the pillar of the innovation ecosystem, which is also the policy setting, the governmental, the institutional context, and what actually the policymaker can do to help you. And there's a lot being said about it, specifically your sector. There's maybe some correction to be done in the capital market, and maybe investments that come from public investment, but also raising awareness. If you look at it, what is the one thing that you would actually need? The policymaker, it could be the regional one, but maybe let's think about the national one as well. What would you need or expect from them to support you in this growth? I think what really good is that the Netherlands just adopted a definition for a solar car, which is super cool. They just it's in one of the tax policies in the Netherlands called the environmental tax deduction, the milieuinvesteringsaftrek. And they defined the solar car in that, which is super cool, because they said, okay, if you have X amount of solar generation and you have X amount of consumption, which should be very low, and you divide the two numbers, if you are above 7, you're a solar car, and if you're under 7, you're a normal EV with a solar roof, if you have a solar roof. So it's super cool that they said, hey, we have a definition for solar cars, but that's only in this small environmental tax deduction scheme. It's not adopted in Dutch law. And what I would say is that, why not define a solar electric car in general law and say, hey, this is going to be our formal definition from now on, and we are going to help the Lightyear to also make this a European definition.
Yeah.
And we are not only going to help Lightyear, we're also going to help Sono Motors, the German manufacturer, but we actually are going to help ourselves, because these solar cars can actually help us to completely renew our mobility fleets, because they need much less charges. Much less charges mean that more electric cars, basically. So I think they should adopt this definition very early, and that's a bit where the tension is that politicians tend to listen to the mass audience, but mass audience not always signals early problems. It's sort of this innovation theory where you have the innovators and you have the early adopters, and if you only listen to the majority, you will always be late.
Yeah.
So it's for politicians really good to see what's happening at the innovator scheme, and see how can we build policies. And especially in this transition, you need to listen to these innovators, because they have potential solutions, and they might be wrong. We might be wrong that this is not going to be it. Could be, but we should try it, because we think it's going to be huge. And if it's not huge in 5 years' time, then we change policy and then we adopt something different. But if you don't listen to these innovators, you will always be late.
Yeah.
And it's better to fail fast. And that's of course the whole motto of all entrepreneurs, than to be late. And this sort of mindset I would hope to see more in the transition, of course, to the new cabinet, that this sort of adoption, that this thinking gets more and more adopted, to just try it and to not be always.
Yeah. There's also a minister for energy and climate, I think. I don't know.
In
economic affairs.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is gonna change anything in the
We
setting,
hope,
but it shows at least some intentions.
Yeah.
To put it in a nutshell, just look a little further than your nose, and innovation. Yeah, you're looking for right now, but you should also look at 50 years from now.
Yeah, not only solve the problems of today.
You're too late.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
But I think that idea of early adopters is very important. You could look at early adopters as a kind of a niche market, right? But if you then can celebrate success for those early adopters, then you have an even stronger story to tell to politicians, to the mass market, so to say, and also highlight, how your product and how your concept solves this huge problem of the grid, of mobility, etc. Indeed, apparently many people are not even aware of that. As you said,
0.1%.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. But it's also a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
But I'm thinking, doesn't it at the same time make it also a little risk? Just thinking also for you as a company, then like the public party becomes in one way or another also a little bit of stakeholder in what you do, and whether you are successful or not. It also determines if the policy action is successful or not. So when you're celebrating those successes, you might also more often have people from a local or regional, national government say, hey, what you guys doing? We need you to be successful right now. I don't know, but I can imagine you're producing in Finland. Maybe someone is saying, why are you not doing in Brabant?
Of course, that's
Finland is nice, but maybe you could do it here, or I don't know.
We try to, but I think Lightyear is not a Dutch product. It's a Dutch technology, but our car is I would say it's a European technology development, and it's a European car, because the designer is from Belgium, but he works at the design studio in Italy, so it's basically Italian design by Belgium. We have a UK-based body manufacturer, so our body is from the UK. Yeah. Finland, we produce our cars, but we have great batteries coming from Germany. So from Germany, there's a great battery pack assembler building our batteries. So we already have sort of a European ecosystem building the vehicle. So for me, the Lightyear is not a Dutch car, it's a European vehicle. It's Dutch technology and it's Dutch IP for the most part. We also work together with a Slovenian development partner. We work together with some Spain companies helping us to test the aerodynamics of the vehicle. We are testing our car currently in Bridgestone facilities in Italy. So it's a European development in that sense, and I think it's also really cool that we actually are producing in Finland and not in the Netherlands, because that means that there is sort of this huge European body actually behind this technology, and not only a small Netherlands, but at the same time, of course, it would be really cool to.
No, but I agree with you. Don't take me wrong. We also have a European scale-up monitor, and like the point of the initiatives that we take with colleagues from other entrepreneurship and innovation centers from other universities in Europe. It's just that we should talk a bit more about the entrepreneurship or innovation ecosystems in Europe, not it doesn't make so much sense anymore to talk only about the Netherlands or to talk only about North Brabant or to talk only about Eindhoven, because we're so interconnected that we should also look at it a bit more holistically.
Yeah, but we had the same discussion with the former Ministry of Economic Affairs, that they said to us that the Netherlands is probably not going to be a production country. That was the former opinion, that we should the Netherlands should also decide, do they want to become an OEM country? Yeah, that's really an existential decision. If you take a decision in the USA, of course they want to do it because they're huge. Yeah. For me, it could make sense that if you say as cabinet in the Netherlands, no, we don't want that. We just want to be knowledge intensive, and we take that part. But the production part, we are okay if that's, for example, in Finland or Germany or other member states. And in that sense, it's a bit of give and take as well, and on that level. And I fully agree, if that would be the policy. If that would be the opinion, I would fully understand that, but that's not what they tell us. So I hope that they would say, okay, of course.
So the Netherlands becomes a little bit of a Nike as a company. We don't produce anything anymore, but we get the idea, the designs, we look at the future, the strategy, and then we externalize the realization. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. Hey, I think this was a very good conversation. Tom, maybe you have a last question for our Tom, or something we didn't touch upon from the research?
Yeah, I think so, Tom. One of the other pillars of the ecosystem is access to talent.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more? You're increasingly becoming global. Yeah, of course, it's a very knowledge-intense driven company. At the same time, there is also this assembly, production, so we don't only need heads, but also hands attached to it. How does that challenge work out for you?
Yeah, it's the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is resources, second is capital. So it's really first getting good people in, and then second capital in. Because we are, of course, competing at the moment with ASML. Like, that's our main competitor in the labor market, basically. If you look at the Netherlands, I think. On a global scale, we try to hire more and more international people, also working remotely. So we have hired some recent really cool hires from Dyson car, who stopped their car production. Some UK-based people are actually working from the UK at the moment remotely. It works actually quite well. And we are just in the phase of transitioning our company from one headquarter to having still a headquarter, but not that important anymore, but mostly having several hubs in cities where people can come together in a sort of Lightyear office set, where our internet is, where our VPN is, where we can work, have meetings, meet each other, but then also provide enough opportunity to work at home. And I think we actually were quite blessed by COVID in that sense, that we really now understand the benefit of remote working. Personally, I love it. I love it to be 3 days at home and 2 to 3 days at the office. It's a great balance. Our productivity actually didn't drop; it increased a bit. It's crazy, and I heard so many people, many companies saying it. Of course, we need to build the car, so we need hands. We need to have a real factory. We need to have physical testing equipment. We need to that's needed. But we should also think much more globally. Like, we are probably soon opening also an office in abroad, which we are going to announce this year, where we want to hire more engineers. We also want to open hubs in the Netherlands. So I was just visiting The Hague. Maybe Rotterdam could be an option. But it's really this new way of thinking. How can we organize ourselves when not being, and that's going to be one of the main challenges to how to keep yourself Lightyear company culture, where you don't have people physically in anymore, and you still are growing 100% or more per year. And I think that's going to be a research on itself. So if you want interesting research,
we're going to take that up in a following episode, like internal culture and growth. All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think to both Tom.
Thanks,
I think
Leo.
a lot of insights. I would have like a ton of further questions to do, but we'll keep it for this like now. So thank you very much. And for those who are interested in the report, actually, we'll make sure also that all the links are visible when we share the episode, so that you can read the whole research. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Leo. Thank you.